Hi everyone, today I am going to demonstrate the SBTI temperature scoring tool for the purpose of submitting a target for the SBTI financial institutions for part of your submission. It is one of the proposed methods which we use in setting science-based targets. So this tool is based on a temperature scoring method developed by the CDP and the WWF, and it aims to assess the temperature alignment of current emission reduction targets, commitments, and investment and lending portfolios. So, for example, this can be used by companies and financial institutions to develop strategies based on the information to progress their own GHG emission reduction targets for official validation by the SBTI, to develop engagement strategies, and then to help with strategic security selection and allocation decisions. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. You can access our financial institutions temperature rating tool page through the financial institutions webpage. So if you scroll down, the temperature rating tool page is linked here. Starting off, as you can see, there's a lot of tools and resources available, and these go deeper into the methodology of the temperature rating tool. So for the purpose of submitting a temperature rating tool, there are two files that we require for our submission. So I first want to go over the data requirements that we need in order to use the temperature rating tool. As you can see, there are templates available here for the portfolio data template and the company data template. And this is also available on the SBT Finance tool page. So let me start with the portfolio template. Please note that this information is just for the purpose of a template, and I've inputted completely random information. Also, for the portfolio template, usually we have it in a CSV format, but for the purpose of this recording, I am making it in an Excel format just for visibility. When you're using the finance tool for temperature scoring and portfolio coverage, the user needs to give us information about the portfolio. So this needs to be a list of all the investee or lendee companies at a security level, including the name of the company, the identifier, the ISIN and LEI codes, and then either the value invested or lent to in each individual company. So if you look here, the company name and then the company ID or identifier is used to link the data from this portfolio to the fundamental data and the reported targets. So this is quite important. And this can be any identifier that the user wants to deploy, but just to make sure that the same identifier is used in all files. So the ISIN and then the LEI codes are required to determine the SBTI status of the companies in order to calculate portfolio coverage. So in the portfolio file here, this file I'm opening at the portfolio template, you can enter multiple holdings for the same company, but we strongly recommend that you aggregate company holdings per asset class. And then finally, we need either the investment or the full portfolio for lending in order to calculate the weightings. And there's also this engagement target tab. So this column has to be included in order to run the tool as well. And it's either is used for the what if section that is part of the temperature rating tool. So a financial institution, they can select certain companies and then they can make this value in this column equal true. And then these this is for when a financial institution can engage with these portfolio companies, and then a different default temperature score will be given depending on the scenario. So right now the tool runs on a 2-degree and well below 2-degree scenario, but we are implementing 1.5-degree scenarios as well. And then you also have these additional fields that you can supplement the data with, and they're available for your own import. So for example, you can add the market cap buckets, investment strategies, or asset classes of the individual security, and then analyze the aggregated temperature score per these additional fields or categories. So this is a portfolio file. The next file I want to show you is the data provider or the company data file. So the second file as per the data requirements. So the second file in this company data provider type template or data provider file is what the tool needs for information about each individual company in the portfolio. This can also be provided by commercial data providers. However, there is a free data set available on the SBTI's website. So if you go to our companies taking action page, you can find this tables available for download, and it includes the data of all companies that have set emission reduction targets that have been approved by the SBTI, and it's updated on a weekly basis. Now, going back to the data provider tab, the data is split into 3 categories for this particular file: financial data, emissions data, and target data. To run this tool, this file needs to be in a specific format. As you can see at the bottom, there's a fundamental data tab and a target data tab. So please make sure you have those 2 separate tabs as well in this particular folder. The fundamental data tab in Excel includes all company-wide data, including the GHG emissions per scope, as well as the ISAC code. So this is an open source industry classification standard, and it's used to map targets to different regression models. And then if you look at the fundamental data tab, there should be 1 row per company. And then once again, it's important that the company ID is unique and identical in this fundamental data tab, the target data tab, and the portfolio data file that I had previously shown. As you can see, there's GHG emissions inventory included in this file, but then there's also company financial data that's required to aggregate individual temperature scores to a portfolio temperature score. So if I show you back to our data requirements tab, you can add these additional required financial data to be able to use a different aggregation method, and you can choose to calculate your temperature score using one of these methods. As you can see, with the weighted average temperature score, you do not need any additional financial data. Once to go back to this file, we would want the financial data to be used in the same period that the reported emissions are in, and preferably for the purpose of submissions, you should be using latest data reported. And then the second tab on this file is the target data tab. So here you're looking at the actual company targets. So this includes all publicly announced GHG emission reduction targets for each company in the portfolio. Please note that there should be 1 row per target. And then once again, the company ID needs to be matched to the company ID in the fundamental data tab and the portfolio data tab file that I had shown previously. So for each target, information is required on the target type. And currently we only score absolute or intensity-based GHG emission reduction targets. And then for intensity-based GHG emission reduction targets, we need the metric that has been used. And then additionally, if we look at the information required, we need information on the scopes, the level of coverage, the level of reduction ambition, as well as the beginning and ending year or your base year and target year of the target that must be included in the file. So right now, the temperature score is calculated for scopes 1, 2, and 3, and as scopes 1 and 2 and scope 3. And in order to convert targets that only cover scope 1 or scope 2, the additional information is required on the GHG emissions per scope at the base year for scope 1, and then for scope 2 in order to calculate such targets for the temperature rating tool. So just to recap, in our portfolio template tab, we have multiple entries, but we have to make sure that the company ID is the same in the fundamental data tab. But here you can have several ISINs. It's just that we would prefer that you try and aggregate your holdings. And then in your fundamental tab of your company data, we would want you to have 1 row per company. And then in your target data tab, we want 1 row per target. And as long as your company ID matches, then you are good to go to run your tool. So now on to how to run a temperature rating tool. So on our financial institutions page, there is this link which is called Getting Started Using Python. I highly recommend you go through this page. It's these notebooks that have already stored our temperature rating tool code on it, and you can run through them step by step. The first one is a really in-depth analysis of the tool. So for me, because I'm trying to calculate the tool for temperature rating submission, I will take the second tool, which is a quick temperature calculation. Now we just have to run the commands, which you select by clicking here. And you also run this command to calculate the dummy data that we use to run, that you can use to run the tool. However, I have my own data, so I'm going to upload my data onto this Colab module. What you can do is upload it by selecting it on the left here on this little folder button and expanding the data tab so you can see what is available in this path. And then for me, I'm going to upload technically my portfolio data as well as my company data, the data provider. And then as well, just for your knowledge, I am uploading an additional Excel file on the portfolio template. So I'm going to add these files to my Colab module so I can run them. So technically, I have given my portfolio data a data provider a different name, so I could just rename the file and copy that here. So then here I can just run the file as is, and it's loaded for my data provider. So as I mentioned previously, technically we have the CSV file for portfolio data. However, if you wanted to, you could technically upload it as an Excel. So what I would do here is change the function, the pandas function, to read Excel. And then I could upload my portfolio template here. So just copy the, don't forget to copy the Excel as X. And then just remove that. And then you can upload that. And if I put this function with portfolio.head, it'll return the first 5 rows from my portfolio. As you can see, this was what I uploaded previously, what I showed you previously in our template. So this matches. However, I am still going to go with the CSV file that I already prepared. So I'm just going to reload that one. Yeah. So I would still run this just to be sure about the data that I have. And then don't forget to load this so that you can have your portfolio in the right template. Now moving on to the actual calculation. So this has already been laid out for you. However, if you notice here that the weighted average temperature score is already in the tool, if you have other data, so for example, I have the company revenue data in my file, I can technically run it on the revenue emissions weighted temperature score aggregation method. So what I could do is just change this here so I can calculate it based on that method. This 200 is just us fetching the company's taking action table from the SBTI website. So that's what the 200 means. And now I am running it. So I can figure out what my temperature rating scores are. So short-term targets are targets that are shorter than 5 years. Mid-term targets are targets that are between 5 and 15 years. And then long-term targets are targets that are longer than 15 years. For the purpose of submitting an SBTI target, portfolio alignment targets must be fulfilled within a maximum of 5 years from the date that the targets are submitted to the SBTI for official validation. So when you submit, and also depends on your base year, but basically the temperature rating target is an engagement target. And because we want it to be fulfilled within the 5 year period, we look at our midterm targets, which are targets between 5 and 15 years. So we take the score and we look at it at a scope 1 and scope 2 level, and then a scope 1, 2, and 3 level. So let me go open my calculations. Depending on what target level of ambition we would like to use, we calculate our temperature rating target using our temperature alignment. So for example, my first scope 1 and scope 2 target was 3.12, and the scope 1, 2, and 3 was 2.73. So I would input it here. Okay. So also depending on the level of ambition which you would like to have by the year 2040, you can have a temperature alignment at the 1.5 level and also at the well below 2-degree level under version 1 of the FI guidance. There's also technically a minimum 2 degrees by 2040. However, with the updated guidance, we would say 1.5 level for scope 1 and scope 2, and well below 2-degree level for scopes 1, 2, and 3. So how to calculate your actual target ambition. So for taking the minimum ambition, we first look at the difference between our current temperature score and then the score we would like to have by the temperature alignment score we would like to have by 2040. And then this gives us this number of 1.62. So we know we need to reduce our portfolio temperature score by 1.62 by 2040. But then we need to look at the difference between 2040 and the base year I've selected, which was 2021. So this is like the linear annual reduction in our temperature score to reach 1.5 by 2040. So because our temperature score is for our near-term submission, I've submitted in the year 2023, and my base year is 2021. Please note that for engagement targets, we consider the first half of 2023, depending on when you submit. So even though they need to be covered in a maximum of 5 years, we would say that the targets that are submitted in the first half of 2023 would have a target year of 2027, and then targets that are submitted in the second half of 2023 can have the end target year of 5 years to 2028. So if we look at our current submission, which was submitted in the first half of 2023, I've chosen a target year of 2027, but my base year is 2021. What you can see is that my time frame, which is linear annual reduction plan to 2040, between the periods of 2027 and 2021, you need to reduce your current portfolio by 0.51. And so that's what you need to reduce. And then this is your current base temperature score. So we subtract this from the initial base temperature score, and our minimum ambition is 2.61. So this is for a minimum ambition of 1.5 across scope 1 and scope 2. For my scope 1, 2, and 3 target, I would want to set a target at the well below 2-degree level, which would be the minimum ambition. We can always be more ambitious, but then I could calculate my targets using the same formula based on that. This formula is also available in FI criteria 17.2 of the FI near-term guidance. So if the calculation is a bit difficult, you can refer to FI criteria 17.2 for an example of how this calculation works. Also, if you want to view your portfolio coverage score, you can go back to this temperature score module and you can calculate it. So this provides insights as a proportion of the portfolio that has set SBTI approved GHG emission reduction targets, and then only the companies that have been approved as per the SBTI status are included in the portfolio coverage. So right now, this I think has been calculated based on the weighted average temperature score, and you can see that score. But since my calculations are done based on revenue, I'm going to just change that. And then the portfolio coverage calculation is altered for the method that I prefer for my own knowledge and calculations. So I can see that number here for when I'm making my own strategy. I would say to go through our first notebook of our analysis on using the temperature rating tool, because it goes deeper into, for example, grouping into sectors, regions, and also it can help you create a heat map based on temperature scores. And I think it'll be very insightful in looking and uncovering more about your portfolio or your lending to your portfolio companies. There's also a reporting tab that you can use as well, similar to how I've uploaded files, and it's available for companies and financial institutions if they would like to anonymize their data. This notebook is available for you, and you can run through it again and generate an anonymous company data tab. And so in terms of your submissions to the SBTI for the financial institution validation, please send us the screenshots of your temperature score output, which I've shown on the Colab module. And then please specify in your submission the weighting, so the aggregation method that you used to calculate your temperature scores, as well as the company and portfolio data files, so that we have confidence in the information that you have provided. I hope that this video has been informative on how to submit a temperature score target to the SBTI. And if you have any further questions, first, I would advise you to go through all the Colab modules. I think they would be very insightful. There's also a tool user guide that's available on the FI tool page. And subscribe to our financial institutions newsletter as well to get the latest updates. And then regarding the temperature rating tool, the SBTI Finance community forum, which you can find through our SBTI Finance page, will include updates relating to the temperature rating tool, and you have the opportunity to ask further questions. Thank you for your time today.